Doing things old school, doing things on the cheap, doing things with craftsmanship and skill, being a custom builder in a cookie cutter world. These are things you've heard me talk about before, but they're the subject of today's Talk About It Tuesday. Once again, I'm Mike and you're watching My Car Shop. I can probably count on one hand the number of videos of Bad Chads that I've ever watched, but I have watched a couple of his things. I do follow some of his posts on Facebook. I like reading the stuff he posts, and recently he was coming under fire for seemingly to defend the way he does things and reminding people that he doesn't care what people think. I get where he's coming from, but some people took great offense and said, if you really don't care what people think, then why are you saying this? Just move on and ignore it. Well, it's not that easy when you're the one who's in front of the camera and you're trying to clearly convey a message. Sometimes it seems like you're defending yourself when you're not. You're only trying to explain your position, because that's part of our job here in social media is education. Okay, maybe not everybody's in it for educating, but a lot of us are. We want to teach the way we do things, and it's not just about how we do things hands-on, but it's also about the thinking and the mindset. Recently on Bad Chad's Facebook page, they were talking about his background. It was a picture of him with Gene Winfield, and if you know who Gene Winfield is, you know that he's a legend in the car customization world. They also mentioned people like Chip Foose and Sam Foose and others who have not only had a big influence on Bad Chad, but also have actually taught him. Gene Winfield, for sure, has schooled Bad Chad in a lot of customization techniques. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying I'm a big fanboy and I don't watch a lot of his content. That's not the point. I do understand the mindset. I do understand where he's coming from, because I come from a very similar position. Although I wasn't trained by Gene Winfield, I have much lesser known people in my background and in my past who have influenced me into the way that I do things, even if it's not on an old hot rod or an old fat fender car, but it's on something like this 1970 Dodge Challenger. We live in a credit card cookie cutter world. You've heard me say that ad nauseum on the channel. It's easy to just open a catalog, punch in some numbers, and swipe a credit card and get the stuff that we want to repair a car. If that's what you enjoy, there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, I've made good money off of a lot of people over the years. People who did their car restorations on the drawing board, coming up with a plan and writing checks. I've made a lot of money over the years doing that for those guys. I have no problem with that if that's the way you enjoy the hobby. The hobby can be enjoyed by anybody any way they want. No problem at all. Do it. It's fine. Here's where I do have the problem. I have the problem when somebody gets up in their pulpit and looks down on over everybody else and condemns them because they're not doing things the way that you think they should be done. Now, I was telling Ray over at Rinksworks this recently is you're going to come under a lot of fire and a lot of criticism for what you do. But anybody that's actually out there doing something themselves and really knows what they're doing is not going to waste their time criticizing somebody else and cutting somebody else's work down. It's only the armchair keyboard warriors who do that. So do you. You do you. We can all learn from each other. I don't always agree with the way Bad Chad does things. So what? I don't have to. He's doing what he does. A lot of people don't agree with me hand fabricating all of this sheet metal work on this 70 Challenger when I could buy it. You've heard me say it over and over again. Why would I buy it if I could make it? If this was a 6 or 7 figure Hemi car that was super rare, I would be buying the best pieces out there. But let's face it, some of this work on some of the biggest cars in the world, this is the only way it can be done. Now, yes, this is a little crude because I just don't care about spending the kind of time it takes on this car to carriage build something. We've talked about that before. Everything has a context, right? So I just want to say that to make it clear that there's no right or wrong way. If something is safe, if something is done, and you're having fun, what else matters? It's one of the things that I really appreciate about Bad Chad and Jolene is that they just do what they do. But they do take the time to try to explain what they do as well as where they're coming from. They're customizers, they're custom car builders, they're social media people. They are who they are. And while it may seem sometimes like those of us who do things outside the box of the norm may be defending ourselves, sometimes I think we're just like up there on the stage with our one string banjo playing the same note over and over again because it's the same note that everybody else has been looking for with all of those strings and all of those notes. So that's it for today. That's my thought. Like I said, I do things completely different than he does, et cetera, et cetera. But I understand the thinking and I understand where he's coming from. And I don't think that any of us are defending what we do or feeling like we need to make excuses for what we do. But I do think it's helpful to explain to people who don't understand where we're coming from and why we do things the way that we do. Here's the bottom line question I would have for you. If everything that's available for a car like this today was to go away, could you still restore it? I could. And I'm not saying that from a point of superiority. I'm telling you, I'm sharing my skills here so that people can learn that should that happen. Okay? It's all for one for all. I'm not against how anybody wants to do things. That's my opinion. It should be yours. Wrong!